welcome to Framework. I am Al Schwartz. With me, as always, is John Bernard.
Yeah, hey. How are you today, Al?
I'm all right. We're going to continue with our sort of series where we look back on the directors we've covered and examine their influence, their legacy, or less charitably, the knockoffs that they inspired. People tried to bite their style. Now that we've charted out what those styles are.
And that brings us back to the Nolan-oscopy. It's been a while since Oppenheimer, I suppose. His Oscar-winning magnum opus, one might say, from, what was that, 2 years ago at this point? 2023? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it came out late 2023.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to start earlier than that because this, with last time we did this was Fincher, and it was a little harder to peg down exactly what the Fincher style is. I think Nolan has a more pronounced Nolan style.
Oh, yeah.
Than Fincher has a Fincher style, and maybe less pronounced than Tarantino has in terms of being a genre unto himself.
It's pretty close, though.
We're going to kick that down the road slightly because actually his bigger influence on movie making as a whole is the second lane that he inspired through his Batman trilogy, right? Because the Dark Knight trilogy really, and I guess Batman Begins most directly, really popularized the concept of the grim and gritty reboot that we're still getting to this day.
Oh, yes. There may not have been a more influential film of the 21st century than Batman Begins, which is crazy when you say that out loud. But
the Dark Knight overshadows the other two movies in that trilogy to such a huge degree in the popular imagination. But Begins within the industry is what I think it was such a proof of concept that it got us, Daniel Craig's James Bond. I mean, I guess it was a 1-2 punch of Batman Begins and The Bourne Identity gave us Casino Royale, which was its own proof of concept, which led to, God, do we want to rattle off some of the various grim and gritty reboots we got since then?
Oh, sure. The obvious one being The Man of Steel, which is the direct line from Batman films. Nolan is a producer on Man of Steel. There is the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. There is the most embarrassing of the superhero ripoffs, The Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield, is a direct attempt to do Batman Begins with Spider-Man.
That's terrible.
It's a bad one.
Can you stop for a moment for me on Star Trek? Because I haven't seen those, the reboot Star Treks. Where are you on those? I think the first one is supposed to be good. The second one's supposed to be abominable.
Yes.
How do you like them?
I think they're kind of good, actually, with the provision that the second one is quite abominable. It is basically it is sort of a warning bell for Rise of Skywalker. It is the Star Trek version of that. A very embarrassing movie in many ways, and the contempt with which it holds its audience is probably the biggest reason. It's sort of a remake of Wrath of Khan, but it's very coy about how it is.
Yeah, it's trying to do a hidden ball trick with that remake, right?
But by the end of the movie, it's literally restaging the scenes from Wrath of Khan, all the most memorable scenes, but there's a little twist on them. So instead of Spock going into the room with the poison gas, it's Kirk, and then Spock's on the outside, and then when Kirk succumbs, Spock yells Khan to the heavens, and it's impossible to take seriously as drama because of all the quotations and bullshit, and none of it works as well as in Wrath of Khan. It's a very irritating film to watch, despite being well shot and having many of the superficial qualities that J.J. Abrams films tend to have. That's not the best example necessarily because it's not doing that one's actually doing Dark Knight more than it's doing Batman Begins specifically, which
with plot points about the villain intentionally getting captured and all that stuff
does happen. Yes, shit like that. The general idea being, let's take these characters that are sort of mythic and have a distinct place in the popular imagination and examine them as human beings a little more, giving them a little bit more human dimensions, giving them sex drives, giving them, foibles that are relatable.
Star Trek, I mean, Kirk famously had a sex drive. That's how we got Zap Brannigan.
True enough. You're right. Spock never did, though. He does in the Abrams films. And he's dating Uhura. They're making little changes like that. But, taking these characters a little bit more seriously as humans, I think, is one of the parts of Batman Begins that, well, frankly, is a good inspirational point and idea. Doesn't always work. The 2015 Fantastic Four would be an example of it falling on its ass. That would be the Miles Teller one that everyone was that hated so much that they had to do the MCU thing this year.
And it ended Joss Trank's career.
Effectively, yes. Snow White and the Huntsman is another example of
that is one of the funnier ones to me is when it extends to doing the gritty reboot of a honest to God fairy tale.
And you could say that they're trying to do Lord of the Rings or something there, take it a little more seriously in that way. But no, they're definitely doing Batman Begins in that shitty film.
Like that's distinct from like Wicked, right? Where it's not doing the twisted version of the fairy tale, or like, what if the bad guy was the good guy? They've all got
the same
that way. Yeah, it's just like, what if we tried to make it sexier and grittier and look like Lord of the Rings
and more violent, and they're adults in this version. It kind of robs the Snow White story of most of the things that make it the Snow White story. I would venture that the Disney film for them this year that everyone is so angry about probably is truer to the Snow White story than Snow White and the Huntsman. But who can say? I certainly didn't rewatch it for this, and I didn't see the Rachel Zegler film either. Let's see. What else did this? The Godzilla MonsterVerse started on a note of basically trying to do Batman Begins as a Godzilla film, and then it quickly pivoted into being sillier, probably to its benefit. And of course, maybe the silliest of them all, the film you watched for this episode, Al.
I watched the 2017 Power Rangers movie, which I'm sure, nobody listening to this actually saw, but probably remember that, it's the sort of nadir of the haunted, echoey lady, like, sad sack version of a pop song over the trailer.
Yeah.
To give it like gravitas. I believe it's Walk the Line. And then they give it like a Kanye song for the like more action oriented follow-up trailer.
Hell yeah. All right. Yeah.
The actual movie has a sad bastard cover of Stand By Me in the climax, which is pretty remarkable.
It seems that, I've never been a Power Rangers guy. It seems it would be very difficult to take those characters seriously. And that is essentially what this demands of you, right?
Yeah, it's, I would love to, I feel like if they tried to make it a little more serious, it's like, it stopped pulling up like 15% short of putting this into like fully camp, so bad it's good level of this. But as such, it's actually kind of complicated. Like it's not complicated, it's competent. And the actors are okay enough that it's not fun bad.
So it's just boring. Yeah.
Yeah, kinda. I mean, there's like some ambitious action stuff in it, weirdly, like, but I don't know. Like, so there's like two. Let's talk about the opening of the movie. I'll give you an idea of the approach here. So there's two cold opens. One has Zordon, the Power Rangers disembodied head, mentor figure,
yes.
in ancient times on Earth, calling down the asteroid that kills the dinosaurs onto himself, and as a method of stopping Rita Repulsa from gaining the power crystals or whatever the fuck.
Okay, problems right away here, I see. You've got power crystals and Rita Repulsa and Zordon the talking head. So that seems antithetical to grim and gritty and taking this seriously.
Yeah. Elizabeth Banks plays Rita, which is actually a pretty good choice. But they rein her in a little. Like, don't let her go campy, really. They try and make her, like, kind of legitimately scary, which is just the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, it's just playing Rita Repulsa.
So
they get into the etymology of that name by any chance? Is she?
I think they just call her Rita the entire time.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess that's demonstrative of how a Batman Begins approach to this. That's how you would do it. And it's just wrong for this material. I mean, so the second cold open introduces us to the Red Ranger. He's our hero. He's played by the older abusive brother from Stranger Things. And okay. He's like a delinquent, and they steal the joke about milking a bull instead of a cow from Kingpin, because that's what you want in a Power Rangers movie. Yeah. So yeah, like the opening, he's joking about how his fellow delinquent jerked off a cow before they were pulling their prank.
It's a popular joke.
But then like there's this really ambitious sequence of a car chase where he's fleeing from the police. And it's shot from inside the car. It's like a Bourne chase, and eventually, he like flips the car, and it's doing this car flipping from the inside, and it's very ambitious. And then it slams to black, and a title card where Power Rangers appears on like matte gray lettering in the lower right hand corner with no music behind it. It's how they do the title card to Infinity War. except that it's like down and off center, and there's no sense of stakes to what attached to what has been shown in the cold open. It's really remarkable.
This is about real Power Rangers, of course. Yes.
Yeah, just such a wrong, like actually fairly well executed, wrong approach.
That's almost fun. I mean, I kind of wanted to. I had an inkling. I was like, I should check out that Power Rangers movie. I've never seen a piece of Power Rangers media. That was like after my time as a child.
You were probably 1 year too old for that, yeah.
Exactly. And it was the sort of thing where I was like, I'm an adult now. I don't like that, kind of thing that you do when you turn a corner, I guess. I was way into the Ninja Turtles.
Right.
but
Power Rangers a couple years later.
Yeah. So
not these color-coded teenage ninjas.
Yeah, this is
fighting mutant monsters.
Kid stuff. So I would have been, I don't know, experiencing it fresh, such as it is, beyond just the cultural osmosis of, I don't know, there's an annoying robot, there's a space head, there's a Rita Repulsa and such. But I didn't make it to it. I instead just watched the Bond films. The first and third most popular of the Daniel Craig run, and the ones that most deliberately are doing Christopher Nolan stuff.
More successful iterations, I would say.
The most successful, I think, of all the grim and gritty reboots. These are definitely the best ones. I mean, I've spoken about Casino Royale on this, and poker scenes notwithstanding, I do think it's a masterpiece, and I love that film, and I think it takes the exact right lessons from The Dark Knight in that it does not redo scenes or doesn't do anything explicitly the same.
It's doing some winking and nudging, but I guess not to the obnoxious level you're describing from Star Trek. I suppose.
Right. It is instead kind of just taking the overall ethos of like what does this character mean culturally? How does that translate into a real person? James Bond, like Batman, has never really been treated with any sort of psychological depth up to this point.
Well, I would say, I mean, I haven't read the original novels, but
well, those are more.
My understanding of them, there's more psychological depth to them than you would think from watching Octopussy.
That's true, I suppose. I mean, there have been films that kind of caught the vibe of the books before, mostly from the Connery era, from Russia with Love, things like that. But he has still always been an action figure, I guess, without a beginning or an end, without any sort of interior life, that extends beyond the single film that he is in. We never hear what happened to the girl in any individual Bond movie. The assumption is that he just left her somewhere and went back to work. But that doesn't weigh on him, at least not in a way that that a literal way. There might be a psychological damage to him, but no one really bothers play that until Daniel Craig. But we also see where he came from here. We see his relationship with people that kind of extends beyond. These are the only ones with continuity to them, which is a double-edged sword. But in the cases of Casino Royale and Skyfall are good things. And it's also just, it kind of has a nuanced view of this guy too, which is also a first. Like, he's not a hero necessarily. He is, apparatus of the state, a violent kind of a bit of a sociopath, certainly depressive, and kind of a list of flaws and tics and problems. We're not really meant to think of him as the uncomplicated children's hero. He's not saving the world exactly. He is accomplishing a mission for the state, and he's still really fucking cool. He's Daniel Craig, but he's a mess, and I love that. It goes farther than Batman does.
I think one of the things that we're talking about here largely in these type of episodes is how people fuck up the thing that the main director gets right, or taking the wrong lessons in this approach. And there's sort of two ways to incorrectly try and recreate the success of Batman Begins. And Casino Royale, I think, avoids both of them. Okay. I think James Bond is like Batman in that he is a pop cultural icon who can also sort of is malleable enough to sustain a huge range of tones between pure camp, like Adam West, or, some of those really ridiculous, whatever.
Yeah.
Roger Moore era ones.
Very much
and
so.
then the actual grounded, what if Batman was a real rich guy trying to be a ninja? What if this is an actual government assassin with a drinking problem we're following around? And you can kind of do that in a way that, treating Superman as a first contact story has limits to how seriously you can take that. Mm-hmm. Treating Power Rangers as a first contact story, maybe even smaller stealing, heretical though this view may be. I don't think that fundamentally that the material can hold that level of gravitas. Bond can shoulder a bit more than a lot of other, superheroes or action figures. So that's
maybe
good.
Yeah, I think probably more than Batman even. Both of them, I think, in their series run into a little trouble when it comes to raising the stakes and doing popular things that Bond or Batman has done in the past. There's certain Bat villains who will not make an appearance in the Nolan films because they just do not fit the tone. So it is not encompassing of all of Batman. And similarly, Bond movies, he kind of dispenses with, welcome to my submarine lair, Mr. Bond. All that shit is kind of, they don't really try that. I guess they do a little.
Javier Bardem's doing that in Skyfall.
Well, he's doing the Joker.
Right.
And that movie is actually, directly aping Dark Knight in a way that Casino Royale is not doing Batman Begins. It is a very good film in many ways. I think it's probably the best looking James Bond movie. And it has some really, really fun elements to it. The really committed cast, and they are kind of playing the hits a little bit. Man, that movie wants to be The Dark Knight. It is literally like they took The Dark Knight and just said, how would this work in a James Bond movie? And it, as it turns out, not as well as in The Dark Knight. It feels extra contrived.
Yeah. Well, I still kind of like Skyfall.
It's hard not to like. It is hard. Javier Bardem is doing a very good what if the Joker was a Bond villain kind of performance. I mean, he's even got the little computer messages that pop up and do little clown faces and then blow up. And it's very, very silly. And it does feel like a square peg, round hole kind of situation a lot of the time. But yeah, you're right. The high rise in Shanghai where they have the fight in the neon, and it's an incredible looking. Yeah, it's right. So good.
Yeah, I mean it's a sky rise in a skyscraper in Hong Kong is also where Batman has a fight in the Dark Knight.
It is exactly in the same place in the narrative. What happens in Dark Knight? Yes,
it's interesting how that movie pivots though as it goes on from being a direct aping of the Dark Knight into a direct aping of Home Alone.
Yes, the last 20 minutes is Home Alone. That is where it turns away from Dark Knight, which it has followed pretty slavishly up to that point. It's still good, though. It's still a fun movie. Sam Mendes, the director of that, went on to do Spectre afterwards, which is kind of just a similar wash of influences and Nolan-esque imagery. And it is a much less successful movie, to the point where you're like, what happened here? What was the secret sauce in Skyfall? It's repeating a lot of the same stuff here, copying a lot of the same stuff, and somehow you have a good version and a bad version of the same movie.
This is not going to be the last time we talk about Sam Mendes aping Christopher Nolan in this movie either. In this episode, I mean.
That's right.
But I think let's try it like this way. So, what are some of the properties that have worn this grim and gritty mantle? Well, the stripped down version, which ones haven't? I mean, I would say, besides the ones we've already talked about, Snow White and the Huntsman, maybe hard to do a stripped down ground level version of that. I would say that there's the Planet of the Apes series has done a good job of that. That's also one that obviously you could do a camp version of Planet of the Apes if Troy McClure's schedule permits. But they went the opposite route, the Nolan route of let's make this as real as possible, as affecting as possible. And, they have an incredible effects team and Andy Serkis, who was born to play computer apes, apparently.
Well, I think once again, it's not directly copying Nolan. It is just kind of taking Nolan filmmaking philosophy into it. It is a sci-fi film, with crowd pleasing tendencies, and it is harnessing new technology in a way that is innovative and exciting to watch. They're kind of the definitive motion capture films at this point, beyond, the real pioneers. They're sort of the ones that are just like, yes, we're doing a movie about it. It's an ape mocap movie and it's good. And they did it 4 times at this point, and it has been successful. I think every one of those kind of works, and they'll probably keep making them. That's probably the best example. All hits, no lows, maybe. I don't know. I mean, Casino Royale is my fave of all these, but conceptually, I think that's probably the best. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of that series actually, but they appear to me to be a blockbuster franchise that is Nolan-esque in its disinterest in pandering to blockbuster audience expectations and delivering, crowd pleasing spectacle.
That is
the whole Planet of the Apes storyline is pretty downbeat. Yeah,
that is in a direct lineage with the original series too. It's a pretty amazing series, honestly. Like the amount of downer endings on that is unbelievable. I don't know if there's any that have an upbeat ending. There may not be a single Planet of the Apes movie that sends you out of the theater happy. No. And even still, I don't know. I think they've made 10 of them, something like that. It's nuts. They're a hugely successful franchise, and I think mostly because it's been well handled. In both iterations, they just did creative things, and the audience followed. Pretty amazing, really.
What's another good thing about that that strikes me as Nolan-esque is that it is a franchise of the streaming era that has resisted going onto the small screen. Nolan himself is a purist about big screen experiences, and it's that because you can also there's a whole lineage of TV reboots that are all maybe not directly or definitely not consciously aping Batman Begins, but we've been subjected to reboots of MacGyver and Magnum PI and Hawaii Five-0 that are all trying to be more realistic and serious than the 80s versions of things that they brought up. We could do a whole sub episode about just the gazillion-dollar Perry Mason reboot that HBO and Robert Downey Jr. put out, where Perry Mason is a World War I soldier haunted by memories of bayoneting a kraut in the Argonne forest in 1913. and how much more interested that show was in that than putting him in a courtroom to do, uplifting lawyer shit.
Yeah.
But that's it. Planet of the Apes straddles everything I'm talking about and sort of keeps it on the big screen, has a material that can hold some of this extra weight and gravitas to it if it's executed properly. And the other way that I was mentioning earlier that you can screw up trying to ape Batman Begins is, I think, what made studios really starry-eyed about it. As much as it's grim and gritty, it's, well, we can turn back the dial past zero and start even earlier in the timeline for this expanded universe franchise. And we can get it, Batman Year Zero means we get an extra Batman movie before we're on like Batman Part 6 that people are going to lose interest at some point. We know that. And so Rise of the Planet of the Apes goes all the way back to before the planet was of the apes. It was the planet of the men at that point. Casino Royale goes all the way back to the beginning before he's 007. And that is a pitfall for some things. Going back to before things get interesting.
That's true. It's been good in those cases. The other part of that is, I bet the thing that infuriated everybody at Warner Brothers about Nolan's massive success and therefore massive control of that franchise is his intention and desire to make it a closed loop. That must have bothered them so much. That must have been so disappointing that he wanted to end the Batman story, which has never been done before. And then fucking Bond does the exact same thing too. Yeah. They have a similar problematic final entry where they kill their protagonist in a very similar way as Batman's fake death. They at least have the courage of their convictions in No Time to Die. But even still, yeah, that movie is paired as well. And similarly kind of rough and choppy and less satisfying than what has come before. That's weird.
It does feel like maybe Nolan sort of had to allow them to plaster his name on Man of Steel as in order to effectuate that divorce and actually close the loop on Batman. Like, fine, you can pretend that Man of Steel was a continuation of this whole project, but you're not using any of my actors or me or my scripts or anything like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, to remove that part, I suppose, would be perfect for the studio. I think that the Matt Reeves Batman it was an attempt to just literally do that, right? Ended up being too hard to make those films for that to really matter. But
they're still making the second one at some point, right? Isn't that?
They say, yeah. I imagine that will get made.
The thing was really successful, I thought.
I think
they made a Penguin show off of it.
They did, yeah, but they are hard to make, it turns out.
Yeah.
With Reeves or maybe just in general, they're hard to get these things pinned down. And yeah, it keeps getting delayed. I think it's due out in 2027 at this point, but that could be wrong. I'm not sure. They just turned out in the script. And that is interesting because it really is just like, well, let's just do a grim and gritty version of the grim and gritty thing. Is how that feels to me. I'm not a big fan of that movie.
That, a movie we could have talked about in our Fincher ripoff episode 2 with the 7 section, or we could talk about it here. So I haven't actually seen the Amazing Spider-Man movie you're talking about.
That's a good one.
I mean, that's one of the criticisms there is that we're doing an origin story for Spider-Man again. We just saw one. And so that's, I guess that's sort of what I'm getting at here with that starting too early with the prequel stuff and origin stories. And people have gotten kind of burned out on those. As the new crop of superhero movies now with Fantastic Four and Superman specifically leapfrogs over the origin story and says, we're just going to drop you 2 years into their career and try and go straight to the Dark Knight, basically.
Yeah, that's a bad one. That might be the worst Spider-Man movie, the Amazing Spider-Man. I think that's right. Yeah. Because it is just redoing stuff that was, literally done. It's almost a remake of the Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire original Spider-Man film is how it feels. There is a different villain, but functionally it's a very similar villain. There many scenes are being replicated and for the worse. You're doing the entire Uncle Ben thing. but it's a little more serious. Martin Sheen, I believe, plays Uncle Ben. There's even a scene of sort of rough New York citizens pitching in to help Spider-Man fight the bad guy at the end. You know, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. One of my favorite scenes. They do a shittier version of that. And there's a lot of like table setting for future installments in an annoying way. They made Spider-Man cooler, which is like a real dumb idea. A loathsome film in many ways, and one that never justifies its existence. Is sort of the main thing. His parents are spies, and they snuck him a spider serum. Many bad choices. And when it's not doing bad choices, it's doing the same choices that Raimi did, but worse. So I don't know. It's lumped in with these as an obvious Batman Begins ripoff, and it is, but it's kind of just a very uncreative film in general. And that's the real problem.
Well, so Batman Begins might still stand as the best, or at least one of the best example of the grim and gritty reboot. And
I'd say Casino Royale is the better film, but the less influential.
Yeah, as I was saying,
it's
but it's on a tier with it, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I like Begins very much. Mm-hmm.
And it's also the most successful of the origin stories. That was not, people were not clamoring for that origin story there. And it pulls off the move that has become very tedious to me over time, which is we're not going to do the traditional thing, your daddy's James Bond or your daddy's Fantastic Four or whatever, for the whole movie. But then in the closing shot, we're going to have them like say their catchphrase or like set up that, aha, now they're about to be the Spider-Man that or now he's about to be, he's finally the James Bond that you know, and next time he's going to do a proper James Bond adventure, a proper Spider-Man adventure, whatever it might be.
The first 3 Daniel Craig movies end like that.
Yes, they all. That's the thing. But then they keep kicking the can down the road because they never want to get. Mm-hmm. They don't want to get. I feel it's primarily coming down from the studio side. They don't want to get to the end of the line, so they want to keep things sort of at the beginning of the line for as long as possible, and that just becomes a cliche and frustrating for me. The Batman Begins ending, where sort of him and Commissioner Gordon are having their first official powwow, and we get the Joker card. That's still got to be the best version of that, the most effective version.
Oh man, I mean, I'd go as far as to say that's the best like teaser tag for a future entry that I've in any movie, and including all the famous Marvel ones. There's never been a better one than he's like, he's a bit like you, got a taste for the theatrical. Pull out the Joker card, and you're just like, oh fuck, absolutely, bring that shit on. Let's see it. And I don't know, maybe it's partially just that they actually cashed the check correctly on that one.
I was going to say that's what I think really does it. Like, I don't know that teaser on its own is that much better than all the other ones, but the fact that they pay it off, is the thing that nobody else can touch. So that's the Batman end of things. That's not what I think of though. When you tell me something is a Christopher Nolan movie or something is trying to feel like a Christopher Nolan movie, that's not where my mind is going. I'm not thinking of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I'm thinking of things that are because to me the most Nolan movie would be Inception.
I agree. That's the most Nolan movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, Tenet is maybe even more Nolan, but it's not as successful at doing the Nolan thing, and it's not as well regarded. I mean, so I'll stick with Inception as my go-to example. That's what the other ones are all trying to get to. Mm-hmm. And there are examples of these abounding, I would say.
Yes.
Are any of them successful?
Yeah, there's a few that are okay. It's a tough thing to do. It's if you're making a movie that is going to feel Nolan-esque, what are the signifiers of that specifically? They're probably going to have some sort of central mystery. It will probably involve future technology, some sort of sci-fi concept, some big idea, I guess. Inception. Definitely. That would be the dream invasion. Technology.
In Tenet, it's the time travel stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, even like the bomb in Oppenheimer kind of functions that way. Really.
Kind of. I mean, Interstellar has a version of that as well. Just it's kind of an extrapolation of existing technology, but it's still, the time dilation thing. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And he's using it to, send notes through the bookcase back in time or whatever. That's
right. But the perfect example really is the dream machine in Inception. I mean, that's the thing that I think you will see kind of duplicated in a lot of these movies. A big science fiction conceit. And then
that is taken very seriously.
Mm-hmm. Very seriously. And then you probably structure a genre story around that in a way, in a new kind of way. And that can be an action film. It can be a film noir. It can be a mystery, a heist, a familiar story or story conceit based on this future tech in some way. The character is going to be dour, archetypes of a sort. You're probably going to have sort of a Bogart-esque leading man, which is interesting.
They're probably going to be the best in their field.
Yeah.
And even this made-up field of dream heists or whatever it might be. It's going to be twisty, I would say.
Oh, twisty for sure. Less dead wives than in actual Nolan films as we went through these. I kept looking for the dead wife, and I was like, there's not really a lot of dead wife in this.
Right.
But there's probably romantic problems in some. These guys are generally single or for a reason, and
sure, but that's all kinds of genre fiction, though.
Right, of course. Mm-hmm. So
there's not a lot of reason to make your hard-boiled detective happily married or like a functional father. It doesn't do a lot for your story plot-wise.
Indeed. So what are we talking about here? We kind of identified, I think, about 4 at least that were just like obvious. Very clear, very, very apparent movies that are doing a Nolan thing, ripping off Nolan, essentially.
Should we start with good or bad?
I mean, most of them are bad. Why don't we save the good
start
one?
With the bad ones.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I think without question that the worst film for this. Well, I'm going to let you. I saw this movie a couple months ago.
You suggested to me for the homework portion of this that there was this triptych of Nolan ripoffs with like single word titles that we were looking into, and they were Transcendence. People might remember the giant Johnny Depp flop.
Mm-hmm.
Reminiscence, which is Hugh Jackman, and Hypnotic with Ben Affleck.
Yes.
What do you tell me about? I could not find Reminiscence on streaming for free, so that's one I haven't seen. What can you tell me of this movie?
Okay, Reminiscence is it is written and directed by Lisa Joy, who is the spouse of Jonathan Nolan, Christopher Nolan's brother. It is a film noir riff based around a future tech, which is
we could have got a whole other rift of TV-oriented Nolan ripoffs because Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy have created a mini empire with Person of Interest in Westworld.
Westworld
is such an object lesson of like doing the Nolan thing without the Nolan juice.
Absolutely. And Westworld, I don't know. I think we have some time later for Westworld because it's about as blatant as it gets as well. But Reminiscence is too. It's Hugh Jackman as a sort of a private detective. That's how he functions in the story. What he actually is a guy who owns and operates a reminiscence machine, which is a thing you get in like a tank, a sensory deprivation tank, and put little electrodes on your forehead, and then you can relive memories. And that is represented visually by this sort of a big open space in the middle of a warehouse. Mm-hmm. That you see the memories replay, and people can walk onto that platform and interact with the memories. It is a noir thriller about he falls in love with Rebecca Ferguson. And she disappears. She is a chanteuse that's, a nightclub singer involved in sort of a vague future drug trade. And so he is going through memories of his own memories of her and people that she knew and searching for clues and trying to find her and what happened. Tandy Newton is plays his sort of his Girl Friday assistant, who's like, you got to stop all this reminiscencing. And he's like, I can't. And it is a film noir. Okay, if this movie came out in like 1940, we would all think it was amazing. But it came out in 2023 or something like that, and it's entirely warmed over stuff. It's a very sleepy movie, despite having some really cool world building. But man, it's just playing the hits, and it is.
Can I just ask?
Mm-hmm.
Is it revealed toward the end of the movie that Hugh Jackman actually invented this technology himself, and or that he invented the Rebecca Ferguson character entirely, and it was not a real memory or something?
No, I do wish it was that didactic, but it's not quite to that extreme of twistiness. It is it's a lot more terrestrial in what it's doing. It's very regular stuff.
I'll give a point for that.
Yes, this is a badly reviewed movie. People did not like it. I thought it was okay. I thought it was kind of all right. There's some really cool world building. It takes place in sort of a post-global warming Miami. So there's it's really creatively set up with all these massive dams keeping the water from the streets of Miami, which are like sitting 75 feet under water level at this point. They put a lot of effort and energy into designing this post-apocalyptic world. It's stupid because they're all wearing like noir overcoats and jackets in what would presumably be 120 degrees, the most muggy place in the world. But whatever. It all looks really cool. And the reminiscence device it's not that exciting or anything, but it at least the entire narrative is based around it. Cliff Curtis shows up as the bad guy. He's having fun. I wouldn't say it really works or that I would recommend it, but it's doing the right things. It is a functional version of this idea. It's just kind of a boring movie besides, but it's okay.
Well, so Transcendence's reputation is much worse than this.
It's a worse film, for sure. Transcendence sucks outright. This is Johnny Depp as a super genius tech bro guy who is dying and sort of uploads his consciousness onto the internet and then kind of takes over a small town in the Southwest and is just, attacking people with a bunch of nanobots, basically. Nanobot create structures and do his will, knock over trucks and get into firefights with people. He's become a bit of a cyber god. It's a Lawnmower Man story, essentially. Directed by Wally Pfister, who is a longtime collaborator with Nolan. Sort of like a Barry Sonnenfeld figure, I guess. He kind of left to become a director in his own right. And Nolan upgraded to Hoyt Van Hoyt. Oh, yeah, way less. I don't think he got to do another movie after Transcendence. But and so it looks exactly like a Nolan movie. Is structured that way, feels like that. It's just sort of amateurish. It's a very bad script. It's latter day Depp, which is not good, and it's just sort of silly. It's a lot of the same ideas. I think there's also a tank of water and electrodes on a head, all that stuff in there.
Well, that is, I think, one of the pitfalls here is that when you're doing a Nolan thing without Nolan's intelligence behind it and his commitment, this taking it so seriously can dip right over the seawall and fall into silly if you're not very good at this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very much so. And that, of course, is
yeah, that's a story of Hypnotic, let me tell you. We probably would have recorded this episode 2 weeks ago, but Hypnotic filled me with a white hot rage that I have not felt from a film in a long time. I was texting you that I was ready to give up on watching movies entirely 70 minutes into Hypnotic. I was just fucking furious. I cannot remember feeling so insulted by a movie in my adult life.
Okay, so I bet no one remembers Hypnotic. What is Hypnotic exactly? Or not even exactly, just in general, what is Hypnotic?
Okay. Ben Affleck, who is absolutely horrible in this, by the way. Just career worst. Absolutely unengaged by this material.
And I've seen him unengaged in a lot of stuff. That's saying something.
Yeah, it's out there. But he, he is enough of a writer and director, storyteller in his own right to recognize how far below him this material should be. I don't know how he ended up here. I think it was probably filmed at a tough time for him. There's divorces and rehabs and whatnot are out there, and maybe he just needed to be busy. But he is a detective whose daughter was kidnapped from a park while he was distracted for a moment. And so he's haunted by that loss. So we don't have a dead wife, but we do have a dead wife, but she'll come up later. But he's more haunted by the loss of the kid. He goes to foil a bank robbery in progress, but it's being committed by William Fichtner, who is a sort of like the purple man from Jessica Jones.
When this movie looked like it was just going to be about William Fichtner as sort of the bad guy from Cure, I was like, okay, this could be fun. Yeah, a mind control villain. Fine, that sounds all right.
It's so much worse than that. You have Alice Braga in this, who I feel like there was a stretch where she was kind of a must-have for lesser knockoff sci-fi material. She's in Elysium with Damon, and Predators, the bad Predator movie, and then Dark Matter and the New Mutants, and this. And so it just starts piling twists on top of twists.
Wow.
Because it comes at that, there's a secret government program that she was a part of, but now she's left. Fichtner has also gone rogue from training people to be hypnotics, which is to be purple men who can control people with their minds. But Ben Affleck is mysteriously immune to this. And then it turns out he can do it himself. And it turns out he is actually on the run from this organization as well. And he was married. She was his missing wife all along. And she's trying to bring him back in, and because he is the one who hid their daughter away from the government agency, and wiped his own memory and has left himself a trail of clues or something. It's
memento shit. Yes,
my blood is percolating here. It's twists on top of twists. Except the rules of the world are never adequately explained for any of these twists on them to land. There's no such thing as a reliable narrator here. They tell you 15 minutes into this movie, she's explaining the concept to him. He says the villains can make people see anything they need them to see to get them to do the thing that they're telling them to do, to get Affleck's partner to start shooting at him. And it's okay, you just told me everything you're going to show me for the next hour is bullshit that is going to be revealed to be a villainous illusion. At some point, it's all going to be Shutter Island or the game or whatever. And ultimately, it's an object lesson for me in how meaningless and infuriating Inception could have been if all that exposition wasn't handled so adroitly.
It has some real half-assed Inception imagery too, with folding cities, if I recall, right?
Yes, and it's got William Fichtner doing a bank robbery thing. It's the Dad from Mouse Kid. The Nolan influence is right there, but it doesn't have his. We can crap on Nolan movies for having overcomplicated plots a bit. This movie, man, it shows you what happens when you get overcomplicated plot and a far-fetched sci-fi conceit without having any big ideas or metaphors that you're exploring with that,
or even just storytelling discipline.
Yes. Oh my God. The big expedition dump that's 20 minutes into this movie just takes the air out of the entire world. It's a mystery. And it's just, that world is never convincing for a second as a real world, by the way. It's just obvious from the jump. This is this elaborate mindfuck scenario. And the details they have no internal logic. Fichtner throws himself off a building after his first encounter with Affleck, and it's even when it's always revealed, that does nothing to further their agenda for what they're trying to get out of Affleck. It's just a tip to the audience, ooh, isn't something weird going on here?
There's so many rug pulls and changes, and oh, you thought that was reality? Nuh-uh. That happens 5 times. over the course of the
And I'm
film.
shouting at the screen, no, I didn't think that was reality.
And
you were completely unconvincing.
it gets, like, everything is such a lie that it gets reduced to a point where they are literally, it is like an army of evil government psychics just reenacting the movie on loop on, like, a backstage with, like,
doing community theater.
yeah, with the sort of like Dogville setup of all the scenes that we've already seen. Like, oh, they weren't actually in a car, they were in a golf cart. Like shit like that.
Yeah, like what's this? Ooh,
Like,
a golf cart. Like,
it's like an elaborate mind game to get Affleck to reveal something. So they're just redoing the story of Hypnotic over and over and over again with the same stupid reveals. And then I think it ends as like, this is the 12th time we've done it. And it's like, well, get ready for 13 because we're doing it again. And that's like the end of the film. It's
and then because there's
a dumb shootout. Yes, where things aren't quite what
really,
they seem. Yes, of course. Mm-hmm.
It's really dumb. It's really, really dumb. That's the other thing. They're trying to get out of him the details of the secret agenda he enacted and then erased from his own mind via his psychic powers. The parameters of which psychic powers we only know about because we are told how they work by completely unreliable villains who are in the process of elaborately mind-fucking him. So there's no reason to even believe that. To Nolan's credit, this is a trap he does not fall into, really. Memento maybe does a little bit of this, but it's the entire point of the movie. And that is, like, our protagonist and our identification character in Hypnotic is not at all who we're introduced to. And we never actually get to know the real guy.
No.
Like, it's sort of the Total Recall syndrome. But that movie obviously is doing it very intentionally and fucking with you by having the earlier version of him on screen kind of trash talking the later brainwashed version of him. But for as twisty and confusing and incoherent as Tenet gets, or Inception in parts, the Leonardo DiCaprio character, the John D. Washington character, they are who we are told they are. And all the twists come out of that. And it doesn't, but we have a central, like, anchor in that world, and that is not betrayed. And that's really important for grounding this sci-fi bullshit, I think. And man, Hypnotic fucks that up harder than anything I've ever seen. I can't. This movie really pissed me off watching it.
It is. It is probably it's a great example in a way of somebody just trying to do a Nolan-esque thing with absolutely no rigor. With absolutely no, like, I don't want to say effort, but I mean kind of effort. Like,
no, that's absolutely no rigor is the best review of Ben Affleck's performance you could give in this movie.
It's the whole movie, though. Like, as written, as filmed by Robert Rodriguez, who's, I'm not a big Robert Rodriguez film. He's never made a film anywhere near this bad.
I definitely am not now.
Like, he went on from this to do Alita: Battle Angel, which is a good movie, like, more or less. And, even the Spy Kids films have, I don't know. Shit, I can't speak definitively about the Spy Kids films. It does betray a massive laziness. Though, right? The existence of Hypnotic seems like this is a guy who's absolutely checked out.
Yeah. Nobody should have greenlit any of these things at any stage of they should not use any of these takes. They should not have gone with this, like, terrible, like, reddish color palette that's just abrasive to look at. No, it's a terrible movie. And
worst thing you've watched for the podcast, would you say?
I'm trying to think of what's the worst John Carpenter movie.
The Ward was my least favorite of his films.
Yeah, probably was. This is also, that's a
more ambitious film.
Bullshit, a bullshit twist that telegraphs it too early, but far more effective as a doing spooky sequences than this is doing action stuff or sci-fi brain-bendy stuff.
Piranha 2? I know. Piranha 2 is more boring than Hypnotic.
Yeah. I was pretty, like, the Snyder Cut was kind of torturous in its the length of it all really wore on me, and this is a third of that movie's length, but this pissed me off more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's the worst. It's the worst thing that I've been subjected to.
Good. All right. Great.
But overall, but doing 3 of these things, it's been remarkable to me how much watching the crappy knockoffs does more to make me appreciate what the masters are doing than watching their actual masterpieces again has done.
In every case, with all these guys that we've been talking about, that's happened. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, this breaking away from the sci-fi for a minute, because Nolan also has this historical bent. And so another movie I watched here, I had not seen 1917 until now.
Well.
The other Sam Mendes Nolan ripoff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pretty good movie.
It's stylish. The Dunkirk envy on display in 1917 was sort of the highlight, the headline for me. It's one of those things where it's just like, this is in the shadow of something else. I believe this did better at the Oscars. I think this was a well-regarded film and successful in its own right. For me, I could never just be like, he's just doing a Dunkirk thing. I like Dunkirk more. It feels a lot more immediate and a lot more honest, frankly. Whereas 1917 feels like, here's the thing people like, right? Here's the hey, I'm a British guy too. I can tell a story about our history, about the greatness of the British Empire and the World Wars. I can bring some structural ticks and stylization to it that will set it aside.
The least knowing thing about it is that it jettisons the most known thing about Dunkirk, which is that
the time thing,
loopy time structure.
I don't know,
and it exchanges that sort of structural, like script level, virtuosity that Nolan brings to it for big long oneers, the big long tracking shot action bits, which I think is more in the Academy wheelhouse of what they think of as bravura filmmaking and find it easier to reward.
Probably so. It's a safer film for sure than Dunkirk is. Dunkirk is all sorts of risks. It's many spitting plates. Not all of them stay afloat the whole film, really, but you have to kind of just sit in awe of the effort and the attention and the amount of filmmaking brought to bear on the story. It's just like, how much shit can I get away with in this? 1917 is it's a little more regular thing.
No, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you nailed it right there. It's a great deal of filmmaking on the screen. It's overloaded. It's a good movie. But it's kind of like you were saying. It's very much Dunkirk with a couple actual characters.
Sure.
And
we got similar cameos from established British thespians popping up.
Yes.
To do their thing.
To be war weary, lieutenants that pop in for a scene. Mm-hmm. It is, honestly, so the conceit there is the guy's going across, sort of the front trying to deliver a message. And so these couple guys have to go through all these different set pieces. And because it does edge into like almost farcical territory at a certain point. Because it's just the one thing after another element of it. Like it's Dunkirk with 20% of After Hours mixed into it. And I was directly offended that this is a good movie that could also, I think, maybe be really easily ruined by a YouTuber that just put yakety sax over some of these set pieces.
Sure.
Sort of the way
long
that
track running across the field with the bombs going off. I can see it in my mind right now. Yeah.
He's running through the bombed out city and being chased and they're firing guns at him. He jumps into the water and goes over a waterfall. Yeah. It could do the way that The Revenant was ruined forever by somebody putting the Jackass theme music over and DiCaprio getting mauled by a bear and jumping off a cliff into a tree and everything.
That's great. I haven't seen that.
Oh, you haven't? It's amazing. It's certainly worth 45 seconds of your time on YouTube. And I think that was finally my clean break from Iterate 2. I was like, you know what? I never have to actually pretend to take this guy seriously again now. I can just accept that I that he's very good at certain things, and I despise him as a filmmaker. But anyway, 1917, not like you're right. Dunkirk envy is palpable. My main takeaway in 2025 watching it is like, man, real sets are nice. It's great when they go outside to shoot things.
Oh, sure. There's a lot to admire about the film. I'm also kind of just if you're going to make a war movie at this point, you got to be doing something. And I guess 1917 is, but narratively, it's very well worn material at this point. And I've just seen so many goddamn war movies. I'm just not even sure what's left to be told, or what emotions I can feel again for the first time.
Right
After so many.
Yeah, that's coming. Like I said, it's. Having seen Dunkirk and All Quiet on the Western Front before this, which is also in World War One, and
the trenches
feels like it could have been shot by the same DP and everything. It felt like this wasn't bringing anything new to the table, but it was doing it all pretty well. It's weird. Sam Mendes, somebody that won Best Picture. Before Christopher Nolan came to the fore. And now so much of Sam Mendes' legacy is going to be, he's the guy who was always chasing Christopher Nolan's tail.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to see some Oppenheimer type thing from him in the near future.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
Rico
know.
Fermi biopic coming from Sam Mendes in 2027.
Okay, so there is another director that I think is doing Nolan-esque stuff right now. He is a lot less. I have trouble calling him I don't think he's ripping off Nolan per se, but I do believe that without Christopher Nolan hitting enormously, we would not have this guy kind of taking that position in culture and now starting to hit enormously as well. And that is Denis Villeneuve.
Yes, I see where you're going there. And maybe another way of saying that would be Denis Villeneuve would not have the career he does if no one had been willing to continue to take existing IP projects after he was done with Batman. Mm-hmm. If Nolan would have been first choice for Blade Runner 2049 if he would have taken it. He would have been first choice for Dune if he would have taken it. Mm-hmm. But instead those go to Villeneuve, who puts his own stamp on them. And I agree. You can definitely see some influence there. I think we both give him more credit for having his own voice than we're giving Sam Mendes for his knockoffs.
Yes, exactly. And that's a hard thing to define explicitly because, Sam Mendes obviously has a body of work at this point. Mm-hmm. But Villeneuve, I think he's a guy that was allowed to hit and succeed at the level he did because Nolan blazed the path and made this kind of movie popular. It's still kind of nuts that a Nolan-esque film is a sort of a powerhouse at the box office, that is a type of film that people are clamoring for, that Oppenheimer made as much money as it did. The fact that he became a brand making these type of movies is remarkable. It's incredible. It's, it would take a very specific set of things happening just so to get us to this point, a big part of that being Dark Knight, obviously, but even still, it paved the way for somebody who is, I wouldn't say a ripoff artist or anything like that. He's not doing Nolan, but he is a similar voice. He is authentically himself, and himself happens to be similar to Nolan in many respects. I think you can go through his filmography and you can be like, that's Nolan-esque without aping any of these specific things that we have mentioned here.
Yeah, okay, follow me on a little detour here, because there was one other movie I watched for this, which was Duncan Jones' Source Code.
Good film.
And good movie. And Duncan Jones is an interesting sort of counterpoint to what you're saying about Villeneuve. He left stuff in
he could have been Denis Villeneuve. He just had some missteps. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like Source Code, people don't remember that one that well, I don't think, but it is very Nolan in that it's a concept first approach. It's got it's complete with an underwritten romantic interest, and a disturbing moral dilemma that goes basically unacknowledged with,
sure.
The way that nobody comes out of Inception talking about how what our heroes are actually doing to Cillian Murphy is like a violation on unfathomable scale. Like, it's like, I don't want to use inflammatory language, but it's like worse than sexual assault in some ways, how deep it goes. But regardless, Source Code's a good little movie. It needs a better villain. But it seemed to set him up to be the next Nolan, because like between Moon and Source Code, that felt very analogous to like Nolan going from Memento to like Insomnia or whatever. But then Duncan Jones put his studio chips on Warcraft as a property, whereas Nolan got to do Batman. That's not a very fair fight.
Yeah.
And it kind of derailed him. He never recovered. Villeneuve did a much better job with his studio IP Springboard.
Source Code actually has that thing that we were talking. It is a genre narrative based around a piece of future tech.
It makes no sense that they take it very seriously.
Yeah, in the Inception vein. I think it also came out like 6 months after Inception or something like that, so it can't really be inspired by that, but it's similar minds, kind of similar paths. And yes, it is successful at doing what it is. That is a fun one. And yeah, that is unfortunate. He's been done since Warcraft. He also had that Netflix movie Mute that everyone hated. That couldn't have helped.
I never saw that one. Yeah,
it's about Paul Rudd as like a future pedophile or something. It's a complicated. We don't want to talk about Mute much, but a movie that everyone loathed who saw it. Most people didn't even see it. Is it really just Warcraft then that put the massive kibosh on a promising career? I mean, it seems like he could have. Source Code alone gets him another Source Code sized vehicle, but it didn't. Oh well. Anyway, Villeneuve took the banner and is running with it.
Well, he's the best example I can think of currently that works as often as Nolan does, because like Tarantino is kind of his own brand or whatever, but it's been 6 years since his last movie, and same. But who works in sort of big budget tentpole with the auteur patina around him still, and has art house credibility, but does billion-dollar movies. Yeah,
it's rare air. It's a great place to be if you can get it, and it is odd that really, aside from people who are making like the old masters, or I don't know, the Russo brothers, guys who are just company men, this specific place is kind of occupied only by the sort of idiosyncratic dudes like Nolan and Villeneuve, who are making kind of adult science fiction with a very serious minded.
Very serious sci-fi blockbusters. That's And I mean, Villeneuve obviously, like Nolan, has branched out. He's not exclusively making sci-fi. He does stuff like Prisoners, the rest of it is I mean, Sicario.
It's Sicario. It's genre, but it's but the big ones like Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, and the Dune films. Those could all be Christopher Nolan movies, essentially.
Yes, interesting. You say that one of the old masters that made their name on adult sci-fi blockbusters is James Cameron, who is still ostensibly making adult sci-fi epics.
I wouldn't say adult the way these guys
but he's making cartoons.
Yeah. I don't think he ever did, though. I think he always had, much more of a pulp sensibility. He's never going to do a hard sci-fi film.
Oh, come on. Terminator and Aliens, they qualify as.
Do they? Hard sci-fi?
Are you using hard versus sci-fi in terms of the sci-fi, or like hard R?
Not hard R. I mean real science fiction in the way that I don't know. I don't even know if I'd say Nolan is doing that, I guess. Now that
the technology is Aliens is more grounded than Inception, really. But
it has aliens.
Certainly more than Tenet.
I mean, yes. Okay, fair enough.
Tenet has time travel.
Tenet is massive bullshit. You're right. All right, that's a fair point. I don't know. There's a pulp sensibility to Cameron that I think is different. Yes. I think his antecedents, which we're going to talk about next time we do one of these, are people like Michael Bay. Not thinking man shit for the most part. It is populism. And that's sort of his magic touch.
He's more action forward than Nolan or Villeneuve, although Nolan and Villeneuve have some really great action set pieces under their belts.
here's another old master. Steven Spielberg made a Christopher Nolan ripoff film in 2001, Minority Report. It has all the things we were talking about. It is it's a fucking noir based around future technology. It's about, I think he's missing his kid, I believe. It's the same setup as Hypnotic. It's and that movie is successful.
It also has an ending that is a Christopher Nolan ending.
It does.
It is about maybe embracing the fantasy early reality, and that's the happiest ending you're going to get is just living in the lie.
I think actually we put it out like that, and I'm like, well, actually, maybe that's a Nolan inspiration. Maybe that is a film that was on Nolan's Rolodex when he was making some of his big hits.
Well, that does bring us to I think the sort of last thing to address here, which is when we're talking about ripoffs in these, it's normally aesthetics that are being ripped off.
Sure.
But we are trying to say, look at these filmographies through more of a thematic lens and saying, what would be a thematic twin or descendant of a Nolan movie that just fits with his philosophical preoccupations, if not so much the way he shoots sci-fi action.
Right.
And do any of the ones we talked about already fit the bill?
I mean, yeah, I would say, Arrival feels like it could be if it starred a man instead of a woman.
The least known thing about it is the female protagonist.
Yeah, that would be spot on. I think.
Well, okay. Hey, actually, let me hold you on that. Mm-hmm. Is that the exact opposite of a Nolan thematic statement? Because
somewhat
the twist there is that she goes into it with eyes wide open, and eventually ruins her marriage, and it's choosing to live blind.
Say, that is a fucked up movie. The more I think about that movie, the more I'm just like, I don't like how that makes me feel. No.
Well, Arrival could be its own kettle of fish, but
it is.
The Nolan protagonist would find a way to block their own knowledge of that and go into it blind. I mean, that's the ending of Inception.
Okay, so embracing not to see embracing the lie. That's definitely a big hallmark. Let's see. Has anything we've talked about fit there? Well, actually, that's the exact ending of Reminiscence.
He chooses to live inside the...
He lives inside the Reminiscence, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. But Reminiscence is the most Nolan movie.
It very much is, yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Hypnotic might have some version of events that is that.
No, I refuse to grant it any grace in that regard. Mm-hmm. It's not even half-baked. I was thinking Ang Lee's Life of Pi.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Not again, like you would not mistake that for being shot by Nolan's cinematographer, but the entire thematic preoccupation in there is, well, mightn't it be better to just believe the fantasy than to live in the dour reality?
That is a film I'm actually considering rewatching when we talk about James Cameron because of its technological aspects. The idea of masters using 3D with a purpose. But you're right. That is also doing Christopher Nolan thematic ideas. Interesting. And is also an adaptation of IP in its way.
Yeah, and it's at least a little British. Not as British as Nolan.
I think that's quite compelling, actually. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So, Nolan, pretty good.
Yeah. Again, what always happens here is like, well, this just kind of shines a light on how good the guy did it himself. When you have this amount of imposters kind of falling in line after your movies come out, you did something right. As often as not.
Yes, you get to see all these people following behind him, stepping into all the bear traps that the master danced around in ways that we did notice them.
You don't see a lot of Russo brother imitators, exactly. Even though they made the most successful film of all time, it's not that sort of thing. You're in no danger of Framework doing a Russo brothers series.
No. But we are going to look at Cameron ripoffs next. That's going to be another tough one, I think, to sort of nail down exactly what's him and what is just general action movie stuff that he influenced but somewhat predates him.
He defined the premise of the modern action film. You know, the major event film is kind of predicated on his work, you know, over the 80s and the 90s. So it's going to be tough to separate the entire genre from the influence of James Cameron. There are some very specific people, I think, that ape him directly.
Maybe the project then there is to try and untangle the Cameron DNA strands from the Spielberg strands of the action blockbuster of the last 40 years.
That would be the challenge. It is the two of them. Okay. Well, that'll be the next time we do one of these. And yes, thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. All of that. We appreciate you. I don't know, man. That's it, I think. Hey, thanks for listening.
Should have had something about Nolan's signature ending. That you gotta lay in like an image 10 minutes in, and then show it again 45 minutes later, and then end on that note.
We can maybe think about doing something creative like that for future ones of these. Maybe.
Yeah, we're done.
We're going to fix this at this point. All right, I'm just going to stop recording. There we go.